Hey kids, it's time for a story.
Hi, I'm Auntie Mila, and I have a story for you. It's called Shadows in the Graveyard. But you know what? We mustn't be afraid of anything because God is in heaven and He has all power and He's the one that's in charge and He protects us. There's a verse that I really like in 2 Thessalonians. That's a big word, isn't it? It's in the New Testament, 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 3. It says, "But the Lord is faithful. He will strengthen you and guard you from the evil one." There is an evil one out there, but God protects us from him. Shadows in the graveyard. Well, Bill and James were friends, but there was a difference between them. Bill loved Jesus, and James didn't know Jesus. Bill had a dog by the name of Butch, and Bill and Butch were best friends, of course. They went everywhere together, played together, and one day James was over and they were talking. And James said, "Well, it's Halloween tonight, and it's going to be scary. There's going to be lots of ghosts around." And Bill said, "There's no such thing as ghosts." And James says, "Yes, there is." And Bill said, "No, the Bible says there are no ghosts." And James said, "Well, I can prove that there are ghosts." And Bill said, "I can prove there aren't any ghosts." He got in a big argument. Just then, James reached down and unbuckled the collar on Butch and took it. He said, "Hey," Bill said, "what are you doing?" He said, "I'm taking this collar over to the graveyard. And I'm going up to the top of the hill, and I'll put it up there on a big tombstone. And tonight is Halloween. You have to go there after dark and get it, if you want it. And then you'll see that there are ghosts." Bill got upset. He said, "Hold it, you can't do that. That's my collar, Butch's collar." James said, "See you later." And off he ran. Well, Bill went in the house and he was really disgusted. James took Butch's collar. It's not even his. Then he got to thinking and thinking. And he says, "And I have to go to the graveyard tonight after dark. I have to go clear, find my way up there in the dark and look for it." Got to thinking and thinking, would you do that? Well, this was Halloween night too. And Bill was really upset about it. But then he started thinking, he says, "You know what? I have nothing to fear." Remember the verse we read? You don't have to be afraid of the evil one. There are no ghosts. And I'm going to go and prove to him that there are no ghosts. Because remember, James said, "I'm going to prove to you that there are ghosts. You're going to see them tonight in the graveyard." He said, "Okay, that's what I'm going to do." So after supper, it was getting dark. The sun was going down. And it was real dark. He got on a little jacket because it was cool out. And he started walking towards the cemetery. And he walked and walked and walked. And he got there and the big gate was locked. So he had to climb over the fence. And he looked around and it was kind of dark and there were shadows, and tombstones. And he started walking up and looking around and it was kind of eerie. And he thought, but I know there are no ghosts. And so he walked on up and kept walking and walking. And if a leaf blew or something, he would kind of look. And he kept walking up the hill. He said, now he said, it's at the top of the hill. So he kept going up, up, up. And then he got to the top and he says, now where is it? He was feeling on top of these tombstones. And then he heard something behind him. I wonder what that is. Heard a noise. It sounded like someone walking real quietly. He thought, I wonder who that is. And he kept looking and looking, and he found it. Sure enough, it was on a big tombstone on the top of the hill of this little graveyard. He found Butch's collar, and he turned around, and just then James jumped out, and he said, "James, that's you." He said, "Well, I haven't seen any ghosts." And Bill said, and James said, And he says, "Well, I got the collar." James said, "Okay." And so they started walking down the hill. And all of a sudden, there was a huge noise, just a and something flew in the air, something dark. And James about lost it. He screamed. And Bill was startled. And it just, and James told Bill, "I told you there are ghosts. There was one right there, and it scared us to death." Bill said, "I don't believe it was a ghost." And he went over, and he looked, and right beside the this one gravestone was a padded down little nest. He said, "It was a pheasant. Look here, James, a feather." And the pheasant went flying off. And James was real quiet as they walked back down. And he said, "You know," Bill said, "the Bible says the dead don't know anything." And he said, "So we don't have anything to be afraid of. That was a pheasant, not a ghost." They went back to Bill's house, and they were sitting and eating popcorn later. And James said, "Well, maybe you're right. I was always told there were ghosts in graveyards, and I was sure we would see one. But I guess we didn't." Bill said, "No, we didn't." Thank you so much for joining me. And remember, we don't have to be afraid of anything because we have God the Father on our side. So don't be afraid of anything, okay? If you need him, just say, "Help, Jesus, help," and he'll be right there. Thank you so much for joining us. I had a good time this evening. Talk to you later. Bye.
Thanks for joining us. Come again. Stories for Kids with Auntie Mila.